We head to the phones, and joining us right now from the Texas Tribune, Patrick Svitek. Patrick, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for coming on the show today. Things are finally picking up, it looks like, down in Austin with the legislature passing, I guess the big thing this week, or one of the big items, CPS reform.
Yeah, both chambers this week took up and passed some legislation dealing with reforming the state's troubled child welfare system. On Wednesday there was some heated debate in the House after a state representative introduced an amendment that kind of injected this whole debate over illegal immigration that we're seeing playing out at the national level and at the state level into the debate over the child welfare system. Just in a nutshell, this was an amendment to a bill that would increase support payments to family members who take in abused children. The amendment would have, sought to prevent those payments from going to undocumented family members. It was ultimately withdrawn, but it created some pretty emotional debate in the House. There were even some Republican members who, said that this is not the direction they had hoped that the conversation would go in. And so it was a bit of a heated moment in the House. But you're right, things are starting to finally pick up.
Well,
and we saw both these chambers tackle the issue this week.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we see a lot. For those who don't, watch the ledge, and don't keep up with it all the time, we will see amendments on different pieces of legislation that are introduced to get a conversation going and to get some debate going. They know it's not going to pass, so they withdraw it, but it's meant to fire some people up and get a debate going.
Absolutely, and that was certainly what the Democrats were saying about this amendment, that it was nothing more than an attempt to kind of score political points. But as you said, to put it more diplomatically, sometimes these amendments are just introduced to spark a broader conversation about a certain issue.
Yeah, it was a good week for Ken Paxton, right?
It was, yeah. He had his biggest win yet in this legal saga that has dogged him for, I want to say more than a year now. He's been dealing with, for close to a year, he's been dealing with two cases, one at the state level and one at the federal level, alleging securities fraud. This goes back to allegations from his time before Attorney General when he was accused of misleading investors in a tech startup company in North Texas. What happened this week was that in the federal case, the charges were dismissed again. If you recall, they were originally dismissed last year, but the judge gave the Securities and Exchange Commission an opportunity to come back and refile them. They did do that. They kept the case alive. They kept fighting it. And then this week, actually just yesterday, the judge in that case again dismissed the charges, kind of effectively bringing a close to that one of those two legal battles that Ken Paxton is fighting. Now, he still faces those criminal charges at the state level. Those are the more serious charges. They could contain prison time up to 99 years, and he's set to go to trial in that case on May 1st. So that's kind of full steam ahead in that case.
Yeah, and that's the case where they're trying to get a change of venue, but that's
right.
all up in the air still, right?
It is, although the judge in the case has indicated that he wants to at least try to pick the jury in Collin County. So it looks like right now the change of venue argument is not working.
One of the other big pieces of news is school choice, and I don't think it has a chance at all. I've never thought it had a chance in the House, maybe in the Senate, but in the House, dead on arrival. There are just too many people on each side of the aisle who are at war, basically over school choice and vouchers. But this week, you did have one lawmaker say, "Yeah, absolutely, this thing's done," right?
Yeah, Dan Huberty. So he's a Republican from Houston, and he is the chair of the House Public Education Committee. He was actually at an event that was held by the Tribune, and he was asked, point blank, in my estimation at least, is school choice as an issue dead in the House? And he said, I believe so, yes. And he was, as you kind of alluded to, he was pretty blunt in his assessment that this is going nowhere in the House. Obviously, that's not something that the lieutenant governor and a number of senators would like to hear. They're making a pretty loud and public push in the Senate to give this enough momentum that it could finally pass in the House, which, as you pointed out, even before Huberty's comments this week, that looked like a very steep climb for the legislation.
And it's not something that the Speaker wants. The Speaker has
exactly.
not indicated at all that he's for vouchers. And you see, this is not a Republican versus Democrat issue. You've got Republicans who are for it. You've got Republicans who are against it. And you've got Democrats who are for it and Democrats who are against it. And you've even got homeschool coalitions that are against this. So it's to me, and I'd love your opinion on this and what you're hearing just from, others down in Austin. There's just too many factions right now against each other on this, right?
Exactly, and they're both relatively well organized, very vocal on both sides. It's just a very contentious debate, and it's also a little unclear what has changed this session after last session when it was also unsuccessful, when that push for school choice was unsuccessful. One thing I guess you could say that has changed is that the governor has been a little more vocal about it. He appeared with the lieutenant governor at a school choice rally at the Capitol and said he wants to, he would sign the most pro school choice bill that reaches his desk, or he's previously said that, maybe not at the rally. And so maybe that's one factor that's changed, but otherwise the kind of contours of this debate are still the same as they were last session, and it wasn't successful then.
Visiting with Patrick Svitek, Texas Tribune. You also had a story out this week, Patrick, that Hillary Clinton is coming to Texas, right?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she's going to be making what I think will be one of her first political appearances since the presidential election. She's going to be coming to Houston in April to speak at a luncheon for Annie's List. That's the Democratic group that works to get women elected across the state. And so, this is kind of a natural constituency for her. One of the people that's being honored at the luncheon is Amber Mostyn, who's a big Democratic donor, a big activist from the Houston area. And so it'll certainly be interesting to see if she has a message specifically for Texas Democrats. As we've talked about before, Democrats had a pretty devastating night nationally on November 8th, but in Texas they believe they had some bright spots. So maybe she'll have a message that's tailored to Texas Democrats who are, I guess, feeling a little better than some of their counterparts in other states.
Interesting. Patrick, what are we looking at next week down in Austin? Any major issues that look like they'll be tackled?
Yeah, the bathroom bill, which we've discussed at length on the show, I think is going to have a committee hearing on Tuesday. That's the Senate State Affairs Committee. You can expect to see both sides of that debate mobilize for a very long and very emotional hearing. Again, that's on Tuesday. At the same time, the Lieutenant Governor, obviously a big supporter of that bill, is going to be having pastors kind of convene at the Capitol, and they're going to be talking about that and other issues next week. There's just going to be a lot of people on Capitol grounds with a lot of strong opinions on that bill. So that's something to definitely look out for. Yeah,
and I imagine we're going to be hearing quite a bit between now and over the weekend about bathroom bills and bathroom legislation and comparisons to North Carolina and what's going to happen. And reality, I don't know if anyone knows exactly what will happen. I mean, I don't know if it's fair to compare Texas and the population numbers that we have here to North Carolina. I just don't see that many artists skipping the entire state of Texas. That'd put a little bit of a dent in their bank accounts if they skip the entire state. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see how the debate takes shape, especially now that it's actually beginning to kind of the legislation is starting to formally move through the committee process. It's actually starting to get a little realistic to some people. So we'll definitely see how that takes shape as it progresses.
Great. Patrick, anything specifically you're working on that people need to keep an eye out for at TexasTribune.org?
Working on a story today just kind of about where the House and the Senate stand right now on a number of priorities for some of the statewide leaders. This week, I don't know if we mentioned this, but the Senate acted on all 4 emergency items that were laid out by the governor's State of the State address. The House is acted on one of those, I believe, and so there are some natural tensions. That's obviously been a recurring storyline every session, but we're doing a story looking at how it may be a little different this session.
The House versus the Senate, always something to watch. Patrick
very
is
original, I know.
Yeah, Patrick, as always, hey, I appreciate your time, and we'll visit with you next week. Okay.
All right. Have a good weekend.
You too. That's Patrick Svitek, TexasTribune.org. Keep an eye out. Bathroom bill, that's going to be a major story on Tuesday. If you watch the streaming online, that's going to be probably a very long day for those in the Senate.